All right, well, welcome. My name is Abby Mendenhall, and I am the Assistant Director of the LEAD program. I am happy to introduce the Sophomore Symposium to you all and welcome you on behalf of Career Services and the LEAD program. This is our 5th annual Sophomore Symposium, and it's the kickoff to the lifelong career education component of LEAD. Before we get started, I just want to take a few minutes to let you know about the flow of the day and some key pieces of information. First of all, in the case of an emergency, please note that there's an exit door back there, and the way you came in. Hopefully you won't need those. So right now, you should be sitting there with a nice blue Padfolio in your hand because you pre-registered or you registered in Fireside Lounge. In that Padfolio, you have a letter from your career advisor welcoming you to the symposium today, as well as information about the upcoming internship fair on October 21st, which I'm hoping all of you will join us at. You also should have received a brightly colored note card that has your name on it. Please do not lose this card. The card has questions on it from your career advisors, and they'll be used to help them help you with your career education journey. The card also has information about the workshop that you pre-registered for. 75% of you pre-registered for a workshop. Thank you for taking advantage of this opportunity. The way pre-registration works is that we'll reserve a seat for you in your chosen workshop up till 10 minutes before the workshop begins, at which point we'll open the seating to anyone. We will allow as many people as there are seats in any workshop, so go there right after to make sure you get into the workshop that you registered for or one that you're interested in attending. If you didn't pre-register, not a problem. After the keynote, take a look at the brochure. There are over 26 different workshops to choose from, so I have no doubt that you'll find one that you're interested in. Find a few, just in case one's full. Go there right after the workshop, and we'll let you in. Unless it's full, then we'll ask you to go to another one. There'll be peer advisors around the campus able to assist you if you're not sure where to go. Let's see. When you get to the workshop, we will sign you in there. At the end of the workshop, we'll collect the colored card. Please, like I said, don't lose it and make sure you turn it in at the end of the workshop. This will let us know that you've participated in all of this symposium, the keynote and the workshop, and then you'll receive your LEAD credit. Finally, if you can just take a minute to pull out your cell phone, power it down, turn it off. It can be a distraction for you and for those around you, and I know you're not going to want to miss anything that the keynote or any of our workshop presenters have to say. Now, before I hand it over to our next speaker, I just want to say a quick thank you. To all the peer advisors, thank you so much. Without your help, it would be not possible to orchestrate this event. The career advisors for putting together a meaningful career education experience for all of you as you travel through your journey here at Champlain. The Event Center, Media Services, Sodexo, and of course, how can I forget the LEAD team? Jen, Alyssa, Mike, Maggie, and Jennifer, you guys are amazing. I also want to say a huge thank you to our workshop presenters that are here today. We have folks from the community, from the school, faculty, and staff, and without you, this presentation, this workshop, this whole event would not be possible. Now, I want to turn over the mic to Leslie Averill, your Vice President of Student Life.
Welcome. Let's do that just one more time. Welcome to the Sophomore Symposium. How are you this afternoon? Thank you. I know that you are a lively bunch. I read reports about you regularly. A lot of them are in the middle of the night. So it is my pleasure. Thank you. It is my pleasure to get to introduce to you this year the keynote speaker for the Sophomore Symposium. But before I do that, I want to share some words with you from the faculty, staff, and the administration here at Champlain College about you and your career. The Sophomore Symposium is the official day at Champlain when we ask every sophomore to stop for a moment, to reflect on your dreams, and to begin an intentional and consistent taking action towards reaching your career goals. Today is the day that we're asking you to take a deeper look, not only in what it's going to take for you to find a job, but to put the idea of managing your lifelong career into action. We are asking you to begin thinking about what it's going to take for you to get the job and manage a 50 to 60 year-long career. I'm curious, show of hands, I can hear some mumbling out there at that statement. Show of hands, how many of you have ever worked and received a paycheck or are currently working and receive a paycheck now? Bravo, bravo. That is exactly what I was hoping. It looks like it was the majority of you. So this is important. This next message is really important. It might not feel that the first job that you ever had or the first jobs that you ever have are important or meaningful. But you need to know that at Champlain, the faculty, the staff, the administration believe that day in and day out, those very first jobs matter. What you do today matters for tomorrow. And what you do tomorrow matters for that 50 to 60 year-long career. It doesn't just happen like magic when you graduate in 3 years. It's going to take an incredible amount of hard work. It's going to take intention. It's going to take passion. It's going to take perseverance from you day in and day out. It's going to take your patience with yourself and others. And possibly most important, it's going to take unwavering determination for you to charge forward day in and day out to manage your lifelong career. Unwavering determination. So the spirit of Sophomore Symposium is about dreaming big. It's about taking action and control of your life. It's about being patient with yourself. It's about never stopping. It's about always pushing, pushing further, harder, and never giving up on yourself. Our hope today is that you will feel inspired by something you hear, by something you see, something that you end up doing in the next hour and a half or two, in that you take that inspiration and you make it some actionable step today or tomorrow. That you put your actions to work consistently day in and day out, all in an effort for you to reach those career goals. You have an opportunity to create a meaningfully better life for yourselves starting today. So with that message from the administration, the faculty, and staff, I'd like to introduce to you the keynote for this year. Daniel Seddiqui, born and raised in Northern California. Throughout his life, he was an avid athlete, training and competing in cross-country running and track and field. In college, he was first recruited by the University of Oregon before transferring to compete for the University of Southern California, where he graduated with a BA in economics. Upon earning his degree, Daniel struggled to find a job within his field. He failed countless, which he'll tell you about, countless times in job interviews, but he persevered. After a year of trying, he decided to pursue his interests in sports and took a volunteer coaching job at Northwestern University, then the University of Virginia. During this time, Daniel struggled to make ends meet. But he did pay his bills by working odd jobs and by working in retail, not necessarily connected to economics, but somewhat. After living in various states, Daniel conceived of the idea to work a different job in a different state each week. Pretty tough stuff. He wanted to learn about America by crossing the borders and working alongside its people. Daniel independently pursued his journey, setting up 50 jobs in 50 states over 50 consecutive weeks. Though initially his journey was only publicized through his own website and social media, his project gained national and international media attention, with millions of people following his remarkable quest. Daniel has been featured on World News Tonight, CNN, Fox News, The Today Show, MSNBC, National Public Radio, the New York Daily Times, the LA Times, and many more. Since fulfilling his All-American resume, Daniel has developed a college semester program that empowers students to make informed decisions about their course selection and future career paths. Daniel is now living in Denver, Colorado. Please join me in welcoming this year's keynote Sophomore Symposium speaker, Daniel Seddiqui.
Well, thank you, Leslie, for that introduction that pretty much covered everything. So what am I going to have left to say for the next hour? We'll find out. Welcome, everybody. Hats off to you all being here and participating in this wonderful event that Champlain has put on, which I heard is very unique, only one in the country that makes a mandatory symposium such as this. So hats off to, that's probably why this is the largest attendance I've ever spoken in front of. But no, it's incredible. I never took advantage of these types of opportunities at USC, and that's kind of what left me into this mess that I got myself into, which you're about to see here. But today I'm going to talk about the importance of not limiting yourself. There was a time, especially after college graduation, where I felt the world was against me. Then that's when I realized that my world was too small. And when I embarked on this journey of 50 jobs, I realized how small it truly was and how much there really is out there to discover in terms of, cultures, careers, and environments. And Vermont is a very different environment than where I grew up in Northern California. My first time, this is my second time here. My first time was during my 50 jobs journey, and I was making syrup, of course, right? And it was the mud season is what they called it. So the host family I stayed with, when I first was introduced to them, they were stuck in mud, their car, and I helped them get it out. So I got introduced to the state really quickly. So I'm back here in beautiful sunny skies, 70 and sunny. So I'll try to make you guys get out of here as quick as possible. Okay, so, well, I was joking about that. We're still going to be here. I was just giving you some hope, but, well, you got to be hopeful in life, and that's what carried me through the tough times. So, anyways, as you see here, USA Today did call me the most rejected person in the world. It was something that I was ashamed of at that point. It was my 27th job when they covered the story. But then I thought, well, at least I'm known for something. So I kind of took it in stride. So limiting yourself, people do that in various ways. The three that I'm really going to touch upon is the ones that I really restricted myself from. is my environment, where I'm from, what I'm exposed to, what I'm used to, and that was California at the time. And that even includes social groups. So I was an athlete, so I kind of secluded myself with fellow student athletes. Secondly is your field of study. Just because you have a certain degree doesn't mean that you can't pursue something else in the future down the road. For example, I studied economics, and I'm no longer using that, 7, 8 years out of college. And thirdly is the fear of rejection and failure. That is some of people's biggest fear is just failing. And I've learned to overcome that once I found a mission and an objective to pursue. And that's one of the biggest things to push is we all have to make those discoveries in order to find our passion. I, probably as many of you, as a sophomore, did not know what my passions were yet outside of my extracurricular, which was athletics. In terms of a field of study, I was floundering. I was in journalism, I was in business administration. I tried various fields to embark on, but I learned that with time you'll discover where you're really supposed to be fitting. So I'll just go through the process of what it was like to be the most rejected. Well, I continue to be rejected quite a bit. What was the process like? So the 40 failed job interviews straight out of USC. It was nearly 3 years of looking for work in my field of study. I tried to dibble-dabble and volunteer work, get my foot in the door, odd jobs. But all in all, 40 failed job interviews in my field. And it wasn't like I wasn't qualified. I had second round, third round interviews, runner-up several times. I just never got my break. Then when no doors opened up in that field, I thought I'd pursue collegiate athletics. And I actually literally contacted every single college coach in the country asking for an opportunity, whether it was volunteer or paid. And so I sent out 18,000 emails, and I only got one offer, and that was at Northwestern. So I did not get one here, thanks to the coaches at the school. But yeah, I was being open-minded. I was willing to go anywhere, and that was the position I was at the time. And then on this journey, which I'm going to talk about today, is 50 jobs. I called nearly 5,000 employers, potential employers, and got rejected nearly 5,000 times, 4,950 times, about 100 per state on average. And with every rejection, I had that mindset. I was one step closer to an acceptance. And that was kind of, I carried that through the whole time. If I didn't have that mindset, I would have definitely failed on this journey. How was I used to all this? Well, thanks to all the girls out there, infinite amount of date rejections from my days growing up, high school through college. I didn't have a girlfriend until I was 26 years old, and I'm okay now. I actually got married because of this journey. Well, I don't know why you guys are so impressed with that, but interesting story, since you guys clapped on that, I'll just go through a little short story. I did find a girl I really liked on state number 4 in North Dakota, and I didn't fear rejection at this point, so I was asking out everybody. So North Dakota, this girl kind of liked me, and I liked her back, and then I thought, well, maybe I'm settling too soon. It's only state number 4. So I'm going to find somebody better down the road, which I did in Massachusetts. So that was my 45th state where I met my wife. We got married 2 months ago, but okay. No ring. I'm not wearing a ring, but so let's go to the job search, which most of you have already faced and will face after college graduation. I'll just go through the emotional roller coasters that I suffered through and learned from. Of course, when you fail 2 to 3, even 10 jobs, you get disappointed. You kind of wonder and what you did wrong and try to improve on that. But I always did everything that I thought was right, preparing. And even my parents took me to a psychiatrist to get an evaluation on me if I was self-sabotaging my success on these interviews. But it came to the point where, like, rock bottom, And my parents were going through the same roller coasters as I was, and because they didn't want me back at the house, of course. I would call it the fortress of failure. So I think about 80% is the statistic that college grads go back home, and I didn't want to be one of those. But yeah, it was tough. By the time I failed my 40th job interview, I started to question everything. Myself, doubted myself, lost a lot of confidence, and my degree too. I was like, was this really worth it? So then I realized from that point where, well, maybe I have to change my approach, and not only in the job aspect, but in life. And I'm not better than anybody. Just because I got a degree doesn't mean I'm entitled to a certain job. And it was a point of humility, and I became very humble at this point where I was willing to do anything and everything. And there was a lot of things that led to this point. It was 3 years after college graduation. I was nearly homeless, and actually I was working at a Home Depot selling kitchens. It was a 100% commission job, making $25 a week. Obviously, I'm not a good salesman. I don't know anything about kitchens, never really cooked, so I don't know how I even landed that position. But still, it was that point where I was going to turn this rejection into an opportunity, and that's how this idea formulated. And from that point, I kept that hope and optimism that everything happens for a reason. I've been on this journey and went through the struggles that I was on to be a stronger person. And with that, developed different ideas and got creative. And so it came to the point where I got really confident, and I started landing jobs across the country. And got to the point where I was getting any job I wanted. But then I learned no matter how easy sometimes or how comfortable I was getting, it was never to be complacent. I always challenged myself. I never just took an opportunity. I always wanted to create one. And 90% of Americans actually are unhappy with their job. And one reason being is because they're not challenging themselves, and they just get satisfied. They just get complacent and comfortable, and they ended up never really discovering and challenging themselves to see where their true passions are. And then in turn, you don't really feel valued at the workplace. So I'll just go through an example of how I found one of my jobs. I'll just do a couple as an example. So this is Connecticut. This is a former insurance capital of the world, right? So naturally, I pursued to be an insurance agent. And I was making my cold calls, and they told me not to call back. I was making so many cold calls that one employer, I recall, he told me he's going to get a restraining order on my butt. And I was like, okay, well, this is my 42nd job that I was pursuing. That's not going to stop me. A restraining order, I'm a risk taker. I had nothing to lose, So I called them back, and I got the job, actually. I'll talk about risk taking, how that's one of the essential elements I learned from this journey. But there I am sitting at their desk on my 42nd job in New Haven, Connecticut, just in the area there. I wouldn't cheer about that city too much, but no. No, just joking. But interesting enough, I didn't realize my journey was going to help other people in their own personal journeys. So this gentleman in the green shirt, he was really pulling for me when his partners were actually against hiring me for the week. They were totally against it. He said, well, come on, let's give this guy a chance. Obviously, he's calling us and bothering us for a reason. He must have something to offer. And he's like, we never take risks. We need to really do this, and maybe we can learn from this guy's experiences. So finally, after the week went by, and it was a great week, I learned a lot, and they were grateful of having me there. This gentleman in the green shirt, he actually left his position 6 months after I did, even though he was one of the founding partners 13 years there. And he felt like I should take a risk. I should find my passions as well. And he's a family man. He's very stable, And people always say, oh, you can only embark on a journey if you're single and you don't have anything to tie you down. But this is a perfect example of someone who kind of uprooted himself and went out and discovered his passions. And he ended up, which is passion, I don't know why, was selling flavored kale on the internet. So that's what he's doing now. So if you guys ever want to look that up, I'm sure he's the only one in the world that does that. So that's just an example. And then Border Patrol agent in Arizona was a job that I wanted to pursue. Now, they told me it was impossible, absolutely impossible. And I was at the point where I love that word impossible, especially when it came from my parents. It was inspiring words. It was a chance to challenge myself and prove to others I was a capable person to do this. So when they told me it was impossible, I did whatever it took. Even if I had to carry my own gun and steal someone's uniform, I was going to get the job. I didn't really do that, but that was the mindset I had. Now, with some creativity and resourcefulness, when they rejected me, I called up some local media outlets in Arizona and asked if I could write a guest article for some publication. And that enabled me to get a press badge, and that got me a chance to work as a Border Patrol agent. So I actually had 2 jobs in the state of Arizona. So this was my 14th job. Even got a chance to confiscate drugs. As you see, there's 40 pounds of marijuana. That's how they smuggle across, like they're going to school. But my job, if you guys have questions, we'll leave that towards the end of that, what they do with drugs, that they confiscate. Modeling, now that's unlikely, right? How am I going to become a model? I just got on the phone and started cold calling modeling agents, and of course they would laugh at me. You can't just cold call and be a model, and I didn't know how to do it. But like I said, whatever it took, I was going to get that position. And so what I did was ask if I could be a modeling agent. And so once I got my chance to be a modeling agent in North Carolina, I got my foot in the door and got a chance to work as a model for my 35th job. And this was actually I actually made big money there as a magazine cover in Italy, of all places there. So. And then a park entertainer. I was the Egyptian stilt walker at Universal Studios. I'll go into how I found that later on, but I was pretty much standing there in disbelief, like, how am I pulling this off? This is just incredible, how this idea became a reality. And this was 1 year before this photo was taken. That was the point where I was at rock bottom, nearly homeless, living in Atlanta, Georgia, of all places. And and I was just standing, like, even a big employer like Universal has bought into my idea, and I'll go into how I did that. And then a weatherman in Cleveland, Ohio, like, they sought me out too. So I was on CNN, and they asked me, what job are you looking forward to the most? And I said, a weatherman in Cleveland, Ohio, because it's the most unpredictable weather in the country in terms of a city. And I didn't know I was going to get the job. I already had that mindset. I already knew what I was going to get. Like being a sugar maker here, I didn't get the job, but I knew that was what I was going to get. That confidence carried through. So when I landed this job, they sought me out. They didn't tell me it was going to be at 4:30 in the morning. They put me in that slot because no one watches that time anyways, right? So this is a cover of my book, basically depicting why I went on this journey. The subtitle is How I Returned Rejection and Opportunity for Obvious Reasons. And then, of course, the discovery of across America, not only about the cultures, careers, and environments, but myself, and just challenging myself and see what my potential is. So when I had this idea one night in Atlanta, I decided to compose a mock resume of 50 jobs in 50 states. I made it as real as can be, even with the duties. I didn't know what a hydrologist did, but I just wrote down the duties with some, Google search, research, and wrote down the dates because I knew I wanted to do it all in a week's worth, 50 weeks, because I didn't have any money. I'll go into that later on, but what jobs did I want to aim for? It was jobs that reflect the culture and economy of every state. So I really wanted to learn about this country and what really shapes us. So I got a chance to work with the Mormons in Utah, rodeo announcer in South Dakota, corn farmer in Nebraska, park ranger at Devil's Tower in Wyoming, logger in Oregon, Border Patrol, meat packer in Kansas, made cheese in Wisconsin, auto mechanic in Detroit, coal miner in West Virginia, and even a high school football coach in Alabama, which proves to be doing very well right now. So my journey I call living the map, because this gave me a chance to really live my dream even as a little kid. In 4th grade, I used to stare at maps, always envisioning how different I would be if I grew up in a different environment. And it's very interesting how the environment really shapes who we are in terms of what we're exposed to. And I recently worked on an Indian reservation last year, and it's interesting to see how restrictive it can be in terms of just their aspirations, and especially in the working field. They only have 4 industries on the reservation, casino, hospital, education, and the tribal affairs. But anything outside of that, it's kind of out of their realm. So this is where I began in California, and as I mentioned, I didn't have a dime to my name. No support financially from even my folks. They didn't. I briefly mentioned they didn't want me back at the house. If I did, it was like a war zone. But I didn't even own a vehicle at this point, and I thought I'd reach out to potential sponsors to fund this travel. It was just an idea. I didn't know how I was going to logistically do it or financially. But I just reached out to Jeep, Ford, went dealership to dealership, and asked if they liked my idea and maybe enough to give me a car. But that wasn't the case. They all liked the idea, but not enough to give me anything. Same with energy drink companies. They always try to find a way to market themselves. They all liked the idea, but not enough either. GPS, they told me they didn't care if I got lost. That was kind of their attitude there. So I never used credit at this point in my life. And 3 years out of college, I had a line of credit of $5,000, and there I am with $5,000, which is the most money I've ever seen at that point. And I just went on Craigslist and I bought a Jeep Cherokee and I hit the road. And now this is 2008, 2009. Gasoline in California was $4.99 a gallon. The recession was obviously the hardest time to find work. So I had everything against me. But being adaptable, being creative, being resourceful was one of the essential key elements that helped me carry through. Now, not that I only have to adapt to my environments across the country, but here's just an example of a different environment, rodeo in South Dakota. Anyone ever been to a rodeo before? A couple, yeah, just about a dozen of you. So if I asked that question in South Dakota, everyone would raise their hand, and some people would probably say, I compete in the rodeo. So this was my first time in the rodeo, and now I'm an announcer for one. And when I drove in, I was in my running shoes and shorts and a t-shirt, so I didn't feel like I fit in right when I got there. Even my Jeep was very small compared to these trucks and trailers. So this gentleman on the right in the green, he asked me, well, if you're gonna he told me, if you're really gonna do this, we should get you some wardrobe. So there I am in the back adapting, with my new cowboy hat, belt buckle, and Wranglers, and pretty much the whole gear that he gave me. And then he asked me, where are you staying while you're in South Dakota? And then in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, hopefully not with you. You're very scary looking. But then I thought, what is it to be adaptable? And it's being open-minded and trustworthy. And that's what I had to do along the way. And I actually found, because of that, I found a host family in every state. So this was my Mississippi family, Michigan, southern Georgia. I stayed with Amish in Pennsylvania, Hawaiians in Maui, and even a cheesehead in Wisconsin, as you see there. I was curious, most people in Vermont are New England Patriots fans or Buffalo Bills, or no, okay. So networking was another essential thing that I learned. The more people you meet, more opportunities you create. And there's different ways that I applied that. And one very effective way is just going face to face. And I realized if you're marketing is networking is essentially marketing. So I always try to have a positive attitude and have good vibes wherever I went, even no matter how tough times were or how, things weren't working well at some points. Always had a good attitude, and that kind of carried me through as well. And here's an example. I was on a New York City subway train, and for me, maybe for some of you, I thought it was very awkward to make eye contact with a stranger in New York City, which is very different than Mississippi, where it's awkward not to, So an opportunity arose just by marketing myself and really coming out of my shell. Even though I was a very shy and timid person on the get-go of this journey, I really came out of my shell and challenged myself. So I was talking to strangers, kind of just marketing myself and my mission. And if you show that you're willing to help yourself, there's going to be people that are going to help you. And this gentleman asked me, what do you want to do when you're in Massachusetts? And I said, I want to play baseball for the Boston Red Sox. And, I was a very ambitious person. I actually was legitimately looking to be a player. And since I never heard back from them, I reached out to the minor leagues. I was doing whatever it took. And I realized it was too time-consuming. It was very unlikely. But this gentleman, he said, I know Bill Murray, the comedian. He owns a baseball team in the suburbs of Boston. And I was actually Bill Murray's baseball scout for the week. And I got to sit next to him for a couple games. If you're going to ask, he's more weird in real life than the movies. Not just weird, just awkward, actually. Now, here's just another way of marketing, trying to use your networks here. So I was a corn farmer in Nebraska. I didn't know how to contact corn farmers, not like they're listed in the phone book, like Dave Nielsen, corn farmer. So I contacted the Corn Board Association and kind of had them look on my behalf and connect that way. Social media was just coming out 2008, 2009, so I try to take advantage of that, and LinkedIn is a great tool nowadays. I created my own website, which was previously mentioned, Leslie, to help market my mission. And Google search is how I found most of my jobs, just as a research engine, cold calling companies that I was looking up, like meat packing plants in Kansas, and I would call every single one that was listed asking for a job. Now, this was a going away party, actually, believe it or not. Sometimes the employers were grateful enough to have me that they would throw me a surprise party. This was in Minnesota. I was a medical device manufacturer. I know they trusted me to make some of those things. This was kind of a pivotal point in my journey. It really changed my direction and focus. So they were really grateful to have me and really experience their life and step into their shoes. And so I had a paycheck of $1,500 for my services that week from the employer, and then another extra $600 dug out from my 80 coworkers or former coworkers' pockets, and they wished me well on my journey. And that was just incredible turning point where this journey is not about me anymore. It's about those that are struggling just as I was, especially in the recession. So I had a lot of people contacting me via email, asking for advice, needing encouragement, and so I did always the best I could to assist people. So this was a turning point which gave me that energy and that drive throughout the rest. And this is only state number 5, so I had 45 more weeks, consecutive weeks to go from that point on. So then I was in town so small, like here in Nye, Montana, the same sign is entering and leaving. So being adaptable, as I mentioned, I've never been in towns that small. Do they have towns this small in Vermont, like a population of 5 or something like that? Yeah, so 5 people, and then I was working in the next town over, which was 20 miles away, and we had 20. So I was working at a general store, and mostly fishing and hunting supplies. And interesting enough, each of my coworkers, host families, or employers were introducing me to their hobbies or their lifestyle. So I got a chance to try all different things out there, like hunting, my first time doing that, California. it's not a big hobby, so I didn't know really what it took to hunt. I didn't know there were seasons. I thought you can just go carry a gun and start shooting things anytime you wanted. I didn't know you need a license either. So Californians, even though they think they know it all, they really don't. I got a chance to sing in a Baptist church choir in Alabama, fishing in Minnesota, trying different foods. Anyone want to guess on what this is? Take any guesses. At least what state? What state do you think this is? Leslie, do you have any guesses here? Idaho, yeah, this is Idaho. Now what does it look like? Baked potato. It's actually ice cream potato. This is a vanilla ice cream powder with brown sugar and then the whipped cream emulating sour cream. Now I thought this dessert was weird, but then I came to Vermont. What do you call it? You pour the hot syrup on ice or something, and it was kind of sugar on ice. I guess that's very descriptive there. That's what you call it, sugar on ice. Okay, so, and then my host family here was sauteing vegetables with syrup, so interesting. Sometimes I only could base what I hear, on stereotypes, assumptions along the way. Of course, we hear how dangerous logging is, like Axemen, you see that on television. So, of course, the job is dangerous if you're not, following the rules, paying attention or whatnot. But I got a chance to carry a 60-pound chainsaw, 3 feet long all day. It was very daunting work, 15 hours a day, and a lot of that time they don't get paid for because that's commuting time back to and from the forest. So it gave me appreciation of what people do and understanding industries along the way. So in a way, I was starting to use my economics degree, especially even today, what I'm doing now, which I'll talk about towards the end. And my next job was in Nevada. Do you guys want to guess what is Nevada known for? I'll play you a quick video of what I did there. Gambling? Is gambling a job? Well, I guess it could be a job. I'll just play a quick video here. Russ and Molly. We were gathered here today on December 5th, 2008 for a wedding. Yeah, I was bad. Take you, Molly.
I
can't believe I played that video, but I got my license on the internet, and then I went chapel to chapel in Las Vegas, and it was not my first job that I was pursuing. It was actually be a hotel manager on the Strip, but 200 rejections was enough for me to know to move on. But interesting enough, at the end of each of these weeks, I was offered full-time jobs. 48 out of 50 offered me full-time work as long as I was willing to stay. But of course I had that mission and I wanted to keep continuing. But yeah, being a reverend was not one of the offers. I was more nervous than the couples themselves. But yeah, interesting enough, we had the drive-in ceremonies. We had the walk-up windows, like ordering a pizza kind of deal. You can also order, of course, the Elvis and have him parachute along with you. They did all sorts of things. Dave Chappelle was married there at that chapel, and also Nikki Hilton, Paris Hilton's sister. So they perform like 300 or 200 ceremonies a day. So it is a good field to be in, good money-making field. This was my most uncomfortable job, as you can imagine. I never say my most hated job because I always respect what people do and how our country's shaped and even how meat is processed and how it gets onto our plates. I did not know the process. How many of you guys ever been into a meat packing plant out there? Only 3 of you. Okay, so I'm assuming that most of you have not seen the process. I was in a very small plant. They operated about 8 cattle a week compared to some of these big plants that do 500 an hour in western Kansas. So those big plants turned me down because they had like an illegal immigration raid the week that I was there, so I did not get a job offer. I found an alternative in a small family-owned plant outside of Topeka, And it was interesting that a lot of high school students were working there after school, cleaning up, I won't go into it, but but it gave me a appreciation of what people do, how they do it, and that's the kind of the driving force. Learning every day was keeping me going. So you're probably wondering what I'm doing now and how I'm applying and parlaying this experience into a career. Leslie mentioned I have a curriculum for college students. Now, I learned, especially on state number 18, I was an archaeologist in Arkansas. And we all grew up studying U.S. history, world history, but there's not that much engagement, involvement when we learn. We're just reading the textbooks, course materials, listening to our teacher, professor on the subject. But when you really go out into the fields and learn by doing and seeing, it gives a whole new perspective. And I learned that more than anything as an archaeologist. When I was starting to dig up Civil War bullets and horseshoes from the 1800s and seeing here's an Indian bluff shelter where we found hieroglyphics, it was just incredible. And I really wish I went back to the classroom to get more engaged and even participate in classroom discussions if I had this real life exposure. So what I'm doing now is having 5 states, and potentially 5-week curriculum during the summer months for college students your age, freshmen and sophomores, and earning college credit as well. So maybe we can talk with the Champlain here about that. But I think it's very, very important to have that balance between real world and classroom learning. So these are just different environments that I've never been exposed to being in California, like a coal power plant where I was a boiler maker in Missouri, to the oil fields of Oklahoma where I built these pumping units, petroleum engineering in Texas, and these are all the active oil wells you would see in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, Texas, I tend to have a natural rivalry between Texas and California. So I always bring up Texas. You guys ever been to Texas before? Yeah, a couple of you. Yeah, you definitely know you're there because their flag is waving everywhere, rooftops, commercial buildings, wherever, and even a sandwich shop called Texadelphia. I'm like, okay, you guys have a lot of pride in your state for reasons I don't understand. But yeah, T-bone steak is what I ordered in a restaurant, and then the waiter's like, you mean Texas T-bone steak? I'm like, yeah, Texas T-bone steak. So there's different types of food continuing on where I didn't recognize the food at all. You can't even smuggle this into California if you wanted to. Everything is brown from being deep fried. Even the water is brown. No, that's sweet tea. I'm just joking. But sweet tea is like water in the South. If you guys ever been there, the high school football team that I coached, the Gatorade container on the sideline was actually filled with sweet tea, if you believe it or not. So my 28th job was working as a dietitian in our most obese state in Mississippi. And this was an incredible experience. I got a chance to work on the food line in the hospital one day and alongside a registered dietitian for the rest of the week. And this was actually my favorite job. And if I were to go back to school and start all over again, it would not be economics. It would definitely be in nutrition. Just being exposed to that field and learning from the challenges that communities like in Mississippi face was very eye-opening, and knowing I could make a difference was something that would be a rewarding, fulfilling career. I'll go back to Mississippi towards the end and what I did with the community recently. But I got a chance to be a bartender on Bourbon Street during Mardi Gras. Now, I don't drink, so I had no idea what I was serving or what people were asking for. People would ask me for a Jack and Coke. I'm like, who's Jack? That kind of deal. But I had lines forming, like, let's get that guy. He has no idea what he's doing. We can trick him to pour more alcohol than he's supposed to. So I did have a lot. I don't know if you guys ever been on Bourbon Street during Mardi Gras, but it's insane. That was one of my few night jobs, so I worked until 4 in the morning sometimes. So for obvious reasons, this was an endurance challenge, and this is another element that's that would help you be successful in your dreams, is just having that drive, that energy. What's really fueling you? And I mentioned briefly what was fueling me. It was knowing that I was making a difference in other people's personal journeys and also learning every single day. So the challenges that I faced were not only the drives, 800 to 1,000 miles in between states, but also the 14 to 15-hour work days, to the 3 to 4 hours of sleeping per night because I was so busy looking for my next job in my next state. And this was my 25th job. I was an auto mechanic in Detroit. I don't know if you guys ever been there before, but it's one of the most dangerous cities in America, and I got to experience how dangerous it truly was. I got held up at gunpoint at this auto shop. This guy was demanding for money. I was with employers who were not intimidated for, I don't know why they weren't intimidated, but they actually brought out their own shotgun and said, how about you give us money? So I was like, all right, culture shock here, all right. So I got a chance to work on a pit crew. Actually, the winning Indy 500 team, Panther Racing, they sought me out, and just through the marketing on my journey. And it was a challenge, and I learned by doing. I did not even respect IndyCar or racing at all because I didn't really consider it a sport until I got a chance to actually do it hands-on. It was very difficult. You had to be very precise, very quick, obviously. My first round, it took me 12 seconds to change the tire, a one-lug tire. That's really slow. The lug went one way, the tire went the other way. I was completely embarrassed, but I always challenged myself, and I always wanted to prove I was capable, so I stayed throughout the nights and started practicing, and officially made a team on my final day, changing in 5.5 seconds. So I earned a full-time job offer there, too. Now, Kentucky is another learning by doing experience. You guys want to see what I did in Kentucky? Anyone want to guess what I did in Kentucky first? Yeah. This will be very eye-opening as it was for me. So hopefully nobody ate before here.
She won't bother.
Yes, sir.
Going about that far, you should feel 2 feet in the nose.
Reach on in there. You're okay. You're not going to hurt anything.
No, believe me, that fold's coming out there. You're not going to do any damage.
Oh my God.
You're okay. You're good.
This is the most uncomfortable thing I've heard done in my life. I got this Kentucky.
That's right.
Doesn't get better than this in Kentucky at all.
You're doing a wonderful job, Daniel.
Huh?
You're doing great.
Oh, you scared me. Oh man.
My hand slipped.
Uh-oh.
We're good.
You can zoom the camera. That would be awesome. You zoom the baby coming.
You feel the shoulder slip?
Yeah.
Now we're good.
There we go.
Once
We
they
got
do
you.
that,
We're getting you right there.
grab the head.
Grab the head.
Yeah, just pick the head.
Pick it up. Just hold it up off the ground.
Yeah, just pick it up. There you go. There you go.
Come on, Bobby.
There you go. There you
Here,
go.
Daniel. Now, Sweet's going to show you what you're doing.
Anyone want to be a veterinarian? There. All right. Learning by doing, and even them trusting me to do that. $500,000 that fall was auctioned off for. That's how big of an industry it is in Kentucky and the horse country, of course. But yeah, I was not planning to do that. I was just, mucking stalls, taking horses out for a graze, but it was breeding season, and my employer called me at 2:30 in the morning, and he said, you want to come follow Mayor? Like with this thick Kentucky accent. And I was like, why do I want to trick a politician, Because I thought he said fool a mayor, So That's what he meant by foaling a mare, and that was my job there, which I was definitely grateful. And that was actually a very flawless operation compared to the nearly tragic ones that do happen. That's why you have several people assisting at all hours of the day and night. So going further south, where accents I felt were getting thicker and thicker, like in southern Georgia, I couldn't tell in the peanut shelling plant if they were hiring me or not. So this was just the first time I've seen like anti-abortion signs, Jesus is Lord, that's in Arkansas. This was Oprah Winfrey's church in the Mississippi Delta. Even a statue of Jesus in a public space is very rare to see in the West Coast. Different types of hairstyles. This was a high school football team. The frat swoop, they call it the frat swoop. They just comb it over. White sandy beaches of Florida. This is just another photo, and I'll just briefly tell you how I landed this job. Well, first of all, they asked me, I created a competitive tension between these employers at the amusement parks of Orlando. So I called up all of them and asked, this amusement park's hiring me. You guys willing to do that? So I kind of had a bidding war and created that competitiveness between like 6 or 7 of them, and got a job offer as Egyptian stilt walker. Now I remember the first day they asked me if I wanted to go shirtless, but then I compared myself to these buff guys, and I'm very white, so they're very tan. So I decided to go with the shirt. But yeah, Egyptian stilt walking, learning by doing. It was 6-foot stilts. I was about, my head was 12 feet in the air. Kids tugging on my pants. I had, you can see that I had a bodyguard here, protect just in case kids get too rambunctious. But I did fall one time. They teach you how to fall. That was the training. So I had to learn that within 2 hours compared to most employers who would get like 3 weeks. So. Wild alligators you see in the South, where I even worked as a golf caddy in South Carolina at the Kiowa Island resort here. Now this is just showing you different living accommodations that I found across the country and showing how diverse our environments are. So from a $1,000 a night resort where they put me up to where I stayed as a park ranger in a vacant trailer in Wyoming, to here in Vermont and Cabot Hills where I made syrup with this family, to the ranches of Montana and the adobe-style homes where you would see in New Mexico. The lighting is not too good here, but the flat rooftops, even like the KFCs and Taco Bells are shaped in the adobe style. Now making my way up through the east here, risk-taking is everything. It's, if anything, it's probably the umbrella message of the journey. The biggest risk in life is not taking risks at all. And I learned that more than anything on this journey. Financially, emotionally, physically, for obvious reasons. Emotionally, if I failed on this journey, that was a risk. I mean, how much deeper would I have gone in the hole if I did not successfully finish this journey? Financially, not starting with a dime and just having that fate and going from border with so much uncertainty along the way, not knowing how much I was going to make or even a paycheck along the way. And thirdly, of course, the physical risks. I'm very novice in all these jobs. I wasn't knowing what to expect. Coal mining in West Virginia is probably one of the most difficult and dangerous jobs out there. Have you guys ever been into a coal mine? How many of you guys have ever? Was it in Appalachia or around? Yeah, it was in Appalachia area. So my employer was pointing on a map 4 miles into the earth. So we went 4 miles into the earth every day. And what gave me that courage is knowing that they're doing it through generations and generations. I'm just doing it for a week. And so that was the kind of mindset I had as I was descending. But I'll show you just a quick video of what it was like to descend into a coal mine.
Benches. Lights off. Let me show you something.
That's it. Can't see a thing.
Only thing you can see is that little camera light on right there.
So,
Now, right now we're about a 1/4 mile deep. And we're gonna go a lot deeper than that. Okay. All right, John. This is a well-maintained, well-kept-up mine right here.
So that was, well, I didn't understand him either, but risk-taking, I wouldn't have discovered. So risk-taking is all about what are you willing to discover. And everything I've shown you here today is all because of taking risks. This is the Rose of Appalachia. Actually not too different than here, but sometimes I felt, you know, this was a big risk. You know, driving on some of these roads in the East Coast, especially as I was heading up through New Jersey and Boston, where the drivers get very aggressive. I think, what's the nickname of Boston? Massholes or something like that? Yeah, so Amish country, I got a chance to work with the Amish, and as I mentioned before, I only could base on stereotypes. I've never been exposed to this culture before, so I can only base on what I've heard, what I read about. And so I tried to fit the part wherever I went, so I grew a beard to line my jaw. I thought that was for every man, but that was only for married men. That was a mistake I made. So of course, the best part of this journey was just learning about different cultures and the jobs that I was never exposed to in our school systems. So this is just another example. Another thing that I learned is just the propane. You know, that's their lighting source. They would roll around a propane tank wherever needed with a light bulb attached to it at my host family's home. And then the gentleman up there, I got a chance to farm with him one day, and he says, "Oh, he's very conformed. He doesn't like any types of modernization, no electricity, power tools, anything like that." So I found out he was hiding a tractor inside of his barn in case the horses couldn't do the work during his work there. But moving on up through the East Coast, I did revisit New England, so I flew to Vermont because I didn't know when the sugar making season was, so I flew from Wisconsin thanks to, you know, networking and learning from others that the sugar making seasons during the winter. I thought I could come up during the time when I was going to be in New Hampshire and Maine during the summer months. But this is another important message. What I've learned is perseverance. You know, just not giving up, believing in yourself and your mission. And as I mentioned, if people are seeing you doing things that are positive and productive, there's going to be people that are going to support you along the way. And I did find a lot of support in each and every state. Now, what I learned from lobstering, anyone ever been on a lobster boat before? Yeah, a couple of you. How about any boat and been seasick before? Yeah, okay, so you know what it feels like. So no matter how persistent or how much I really wanted to control the outcome, there's a lot of times where I couldn't. And this is just an example. Working on a lobster boat, I could not fulfill my duties, which was just putting the rubber bands around the claws. And I got seasick within 20 minutes. And they don't turn the boat around for you, so we were out there 10 hours. 10 hours of being seasick, you wouldn't want to come back the next day. But I'm a very persistent person. I wanted to try, and I wanted to see if I could really fulfill this duty. And the next day I tried again, same thing happened. It took me 2.5 hours to get sick the next day. And then the third and fourth, and then they politely fired me. They said, "All right, you're not really helping us out on this boat here. Why don't you go build lobster traps, these yellow traps on the mainland." Instead, mainland, you get it? Yeah, so anyways, that was a corny joke. But I learned that you can't control every outcome, and I've carried that through as well. And I learned as you're pursuing your dreams, you always have to make an assessment or a judgment, just like I did with economics and my pursuing of that. If I failed 42, 43 job interviews, it would be my mistake not to know to move on and find an alternative route towards success. And that's kind of what I learned here. They gave me an alternative to fulfill my mission as a lobsterman. And of course, I got tired of seeing lobster, but it's hard to avoid in Maine. They have street signs, lobster, and a gentleman or maybe a female calling into his lobster restaurant and his outfit there. It's kind of like syrup in Vermont. I was kind of over syrup, you know, but I wouldn't mind taking some now, 4 years later. Alaska was an outdoor photographer for National Geographic. Hawaii, a surfing instructor. And then California, where I finished it off. And I thought it'd be a nice, you know, finish being back home, but I got hit by a car the first day back. I was walking as a pedestrian in a LA parade, and this lady came out of nowhere, and she just hit me right in my back and went to the emergency room. I was supposed to start my job at a movie production company the next day. I was in a bad mood. I quit, but I quit for other reasons as well, but didn't want to leave the journey undone, so Napa Valley is where I found and finished my last job, where my parents actually picked me up because I left my car back on the East Coast, my Jeep. And interesting, my dad wanted to show his support a little bit when I left their driveway. He gave me a $250 check before I left, and wishing me luck on the journey. But I kept that in the glove compartment the entire time. And when they picked me up, I gave it right back to him, showing I was capable of being able to do this on my own. And it's very interesting how your parents will dissuade you from your dreams. They always want you to do something that's conservative, something that they're familiar with. But I've learned you got to do what's good for you, and you got to carry that through the rest of your life. Otherwise, you're going to have that regret, and that's what I talked about risk-taking. So what's next? How can I challenge myself, even though I felt like this was the ultimate job-seeking challenge? I always wanted to see how I can help communities across the country that I've seen along the way that I thought I could help in ways I know how. So this is just an example. I went back to Mississippi, where I went to the most obese community in America, maybe the world, and the town is 100% diabetic. I just dropped myself in and used my coaching experience, and I got the community active and involved in training for a 5K, 10K road race. So this was my lunchtime activity group. This is a small town of 1,200 people. I had 120 people, so 10% of the community participate in this 5K training, which I also hosted. And this was their first time stretching their calves in their life. They'd never recreationally did any exercise and exposed to that environment. So as you can imagine, that's very rewarding to teach somebody something new, to know that you're making a difference. And that's what I try to continue to do every day. Now for you guys, what I learned and what I do want to share, my final message, I know I've run out of time here, but my final message is really, you can control your destiny. You're the one that can choose the route you want to go. And I learned that from being an athlete more than anything. And when I had all this advice and strategies from my coaches how to run my race and how to compete, I realized when I went on that line and the gun went off, it was all up to me. I can't have them do it for me. And so that's how you have to live your life. You have to be independent and do things that are worth pursuing. So I appreciate you guys all being here, and hope you guys all enjoyed. And what? Not done. Not done. It sounds like I'm done. I know you guys are anxious, but I still have to tell you where to go after this. We do have 26 breakout sessions after this. And you can choose which one. I'm also having one as well. So that was what I was advised to say. But do we have time for questions? Probably not. No times for questions. But okay, we can take a couple of questions. We'll take 2 questions. That's what a couple mean. And thank you all again. Appreciate it. Okay, anyone back there? We do have microphones. He's in the very far right.
Hi, am I next? Hello, over here.
Oh, hi.
Okay, so we're just kind of curious, what do you do for a living now besides speeches?
I'm sorry, I'm not.
What do you do for a living now?
What do I do now? Is
Yeah.
that what you asked?
Yeah.
There's several things that I'm doing now. Right now, I'm actually trying to create a television show. I was offered a television show to do 50 jobs, which I turned down because I wanted the experience to be authentic, organic as possible. And of course, you know, cameras affect people's reactions along the way. But I'm actually working on a television show now, a reality program, where the most obese towns in America will compete against one another. And so I'm trying to use that Mississippi as an example. Competitiveness, yeah, I love it. So I love, that's what I always try to do, things that are my passion, things that are out of the ordinary and very challenging, and that's kind of what drives me every single day. No day is the same. And yes, working on my second book, which is going into the most struggling communities in the country and trying to make a difference. So I went to Indian Reservation, Appalachia, Mississippi Delta. I went to work with migrant field workers in Bakersfield, and then I work with South Chicago gangs there too. So I work on how jobs, the lack of jobs, affect communities in different ways. Okay, we have time for just one, unfortunately, one more question. Okay, yes, back there.
I was wondering, how far in advance did you plan some of these jobs, and how many of them did you plan on the road?
Okay, so I planned 10 before I left, the first 10 states, before my parents were like, okay, you got to get out of here, we have no idea what you're doing. So I basically got booted out, and I had to set the rest up as I was going. And there was probably like 5 or 6 states that I did not have a job until I got to across their border. That's when I got more aggressive, came out of my shell, and started networking like crazy to make it happen. So, but every single Monday I had a new job, no matter what. And usually, sometimes it would be a 7-day work week, sometimes nothing less than 5. But yeah, I try to plan out 2.5 months in advance, so I give that cushion, so I didn't have to stress as much as I would have otherwise. So. Okay, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the day.